the fuck is up, guys? It's draft day. I'm so excited. I'm going to give you guys one last 2023 predictive mock draft. So this is how I think it's going to go. And obviously it's not going to go like this. And that's okay. We're jumping right into it as we usually do. And first up, I'm going to go with First up is the Panthers, obviously. And, you know, their new quarterback is going to be Bryce Young, and he's going to haunt me as a Saints fan for the rest of the decade at least. And then the Texans at 2. I'm not buying the Will Anderson hype. And there was a report that maybe making my pick here a little biased. I'm going to go CJ Stroud to the Texans. No way they pass up on quarterback when it's a good quarterback class. And they're at pick number 2, which is not guaranteed, even though, you know, they're trash. It's still not guaranteed. And then the Cardinals are begging to trade back at 3. I'm going to trade back. I think it's almost guaranteed to happen. There was a report today that said that, you know, there's multiple teams that have offered and they have to pick now. So that's almost a confirmation that there will be a trade back here. And I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. And I will tell you why I'm going with them. Now, I'm not sure what the compensation is going to be here. I don't think it's going to be much. It's only one pickup. It's going to cost, you know, we know the Colts are going to be moving up for a quarterback. So I'm just going to go and force. I don't know what's going to be, you know, exact. We'll see tonight. But I do think it's going to be quarterback. And I do think that the Will Levis hype to the Colts is accurate. So we're going to go Will Levis. And you know, that's how I think it's going to play out the first 3 picks, and I think that makes plenty of sense. And then the Cardinals at 4, you know, they have a new GM and new head coach, so they would love to hit here. And trading back one spot into 4, they can get a blue chip player, and I don't think they want to move much further back. They could get a bunch of capital, but honestly, you know, they might not even need it next year. They might have a high enough pick that they don't even need to move up for a quarterback. Or they could trade away Kyler Murray and get even more capital. So I'm going to go with the safest and best player available here, and that's Will Anderson Jr. He's going to be a beast in Arizona, and I can't wait to see what he does there. And he doesn't have to change colors. Alabama to Arizona. Seahawks at 5. 2 players that I'm considering. 3 actually. Anthony Richardson, Peter Skoronski, and Jalen Carter. I'm going to jump on the wave that I think that it's going to be Jalen Carter. I think that he's too good of a player, and Pete Carroll and that team, they have the culture and they have the coaches to let him, you know, focus on football and become a beast like he already is. So I think he'd be a monster in Seattle, and I'm excited for them. And then the Lions at 6. Believe it or not, I am going to go Anthony Richardson. I think that with the Lions pick at 6, that's as high as they're going to be for a while. And I think that if Anthony Richardson's there, it's the perfect spot for him. He can sit for at least a year behind Jared Goff. And they can still use him in Wildcat plays and, you know, whatever they want, honestly. I like that pick, and I think it makes sense when they're thinking about their future. And then the Raiders at 7, I think that I've heard they're in play for, you know, a tackle, one of the top tackles in Peter Skoronski or Paris Johnson Jr. And then I've also heard about cornerback. And I'm just imagining, you know, a player walking onto the board and then putting on the Raiders hat. And I just think it's going to be Devon Witherspoon. I went with Christian Gonzalez last one, but I think Witherspoon just fits that Raiders feel. And they need cornerback, so it makes perfect sense. With the Falcons at 8, you know, this has been a very, very recent trend, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm going with, but I'm going to go Bijan Robinson. It just makes too much sense with their team. The Falcons are probably, their offense is designed for running, really. You know, they picked up Jonnu Smith. They may have done that in the thoughts that they're going to run the ball mostly. And why do you need a quarterback that you have to pay a ton of money when you have Desmond Ridder, who I think probably could get the job done? So now you have the best running back that could be probably in the league next year with how they've set their offense up in Bijan Robinson. And then you have pieces around him to switch it up with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Ritter, Algier as a backup, and, a few others. With the Bears at 9, I think that it would be stupid for them not to go offensive line at least. And in my opinion, Peter Skoronski is probably the best offensive lineman, but I think that they're looking tackle here, and it makes a lot of sense for them to go Paris Johnson Jr. And I think that, you're putting Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields with Paris Johnson Jr. I believe they had a little bit of overlap at Ohio State, but regardless, Paris Johnson Jr. is a great tackle, probably the best tackle in this draft. And that's thinking that Peter Skoronski, would be a guard and probably the best guard, all pro, first, second year, who knows. Here we are with the Eagles at 10, and I see someone that fell, and I'm sure you guys know who it is, and that's Tyree Wilson. I think this is such an easy pick. He's 6'6", 271. I know he has insane arm length. So I'm going to go Tyree Wilson to the Eagles. They can have him play right away. And that D-line is absolutely fucking scary. Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Tyree Wilson now on the edge, who will take over one of those veteran spots in the future. That's just unbelievably scary, and that's how Howie Roseman does it. He does stuff like that. And I'm salty because the Saints could have been up here, but they're not. And that's okay, because the Eagles deserve it. Titans at 11. At this point, the Titans still have Derrick Henry, and that means that if they're going to continue to be a running offense, they need to improve that offensive line, and the best offensive lineman is on the board still. So we're going to go Peter Skoronski. And I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to bring up a few things that better not happen in this draft, or else I will be flipping my shit. The first thing, Tyree Wilson better not go in front of Will Anderson. I don't want to see it. I'm not buying any of the arguments for it, and quite frankly, if it happens, I will be making fun of that franchise until they prove me wrong. The other thing that I've seen a few times, which I think is less popular, but still a possibility, and if it happens, I will also be flipping my shit, and that is seeing Darnell Wright taken before Paris Johnson Jr. That better not happen. It makes no sense. And the third thing, Bijan Robinson. I don't want to see him slip. I would have loved to see him slip to 29 to my team. It's not happening. That's being way too hopeful. And not sure why Saints fans didn't like that pick, but it's not going to happen. You don't get that choice anymore because it's not a possibility. And, speaking of the Saints, being a Saints fan, I don't want to see them reach, and I don't want to see them get fleeced. I think that last year they got fleeced. They were reckless. They got those 2 first-round picks. I like Trevor Penning. I like Chris Olave, but they traded away next year's second and this year's first, which is just unbelievable. Like, stop trading away your future picks, especially when you're going to need a quarterback coming up. The last thing that I'm going to bring up is I don't want to see the Raiders reach. The Raiders reach year in and year out. And, a few of the picks that I've liked, I honestly like the Henry Ruggs pick. I actually really liked Henry Ruggs as a player. I was so devastated when that happened to him. But we're going to get back on track here. Sorry for that little, side convo. But at 12, with the Texans, we actually went quarterback at 2. And at 12, they can pick up a good defensive player for DeMeco Ryans. And I know, Jackson Smith-Njigba very well could be in play here. I even think Dalton Kincaid has the chance to be in play here. They need to get CJ Stroud some offensive pieces. But with that being said, I am going to give the Houston Texans Nolan Smith at 12. I think he's the best edge rusher left. So get him. Lucas Van Ness could be in the question, or in play there, I guess. But I like Nolan Smith. So we're going Nolan Smith there. At 13, I think that the Packers moved up, and I think they could move back, but I'm not going to do it here. I don't really know how the trades around here would work. So we're going to go, and we're going to get him a tight end, and we're going to give him a great receiving tight end in Dalton Kincaid. I do think Dalton Kincaid will probably go before Michael Mayer. However, I think Michael Mayer will go first round. And I still think Jackson Smith-Njigba should be the first receiving player taken first, but I don't think this is the year that the Packers decide to, break their tendency of not drafting wide receiver. I just don't see it happening, and I really like Jackson Smith-Njigba. Maybe they do it. I hope they do it, but we'll see. Patriots at 14. They have so many options here. If Christian Gonzalez falls this far, I think that's probably the pick. Another player that I've seen connected to the Patriots is Lucas Van Ness, and I understand that. I've also seen a lot of tackle, but personally, I think that they need an outside corner, and if Christian Gonzalez is here, he is very much so worth picking. So we're going Christian Gonzalez. We're getting the Patriots their outside cornerback. I've gone Brian Branch there in the past. Patriots fans didn't like it, and I agree. If Christian Gonzalez falls, we're going Christian Gonzalez. Now, after this Aaron Rodgers trade, the Jets moved back to 15. I think it was a pretty fair trade both ways. Maybe the Jets gave up a little bit much. I do think that they should have connected that conditional pick to success like others have said, but they didn't, and it's whatever. They need to tackle. They need to protect Aaron Rodgers. Broderick Jones is the best tackle left, and I'm with that. I'm going Broderick Jones. I think it's what they drafted Mekhi Becton, and I think Broderick Jones fits their prototype more, so we're going to go them. Broderick Jones. And the Commanders at 16. I don't know exactly what defense the Commanders play, but when I watch them, I feel like it's more zone-based. If not zone, I feel like it's, more smaller cornerbacks that work for them. I think that they definitely go cornerback or tackle here. I'm going to go cornerback, and I think that Deonte Banks just fits what they need more. So we're going to go Deonte Banks to, Washington, and it makes sense. I know that's not how teams think, but, he is close. That doesn't really make a difference when a team comes to picking a player, but it's, it's convenient for them. Steelers at 17. I'm looking at tackle, but, maybe they go Darnell Wright here. However, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. I like that pick a lot. It's a need, and only way I see them not going that is maybe by trading up and getting one of these tackles in Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, or Peter Skoronski. But if they stay still and those tackles are gone, Joey Porter Jr. is a good pick, and I think he's a more valuable pick than maybe going Darnell Wright. At 18, I'm going to make a trade, and that's with the team that trades up a lot, and that's going to be the Saints. I'm not sure what the compensation is going to look like, but we're going to just kind of wing it, and it might cost more, it might cost less, but the Saints are a team that trade up all the time. Mickey Loomis in his conference recently said he had 8 picks currently, but it seemed like he wasn't, planning on holding on to those. And I'm going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I know the Saints need a defensive line. I really do. And I think that they can, address that position one time at 40 and then maybe another time later in the draft. I don't think they have to do it at 1. I've said that before. And quite honestly, Michael Thomas, if he's gone, all they have is Chris Olave and maybe Rashid Shaheed, but who knows what Rashid Shaheed can do consistently. So, put those 3 together. It's a dream, 3 Ohio State wide receivers, but I think it's a little bit more realistic than people think. And they showed the most interest in Jackson Smith-Njigba out of the prospects they've visited. Not compared to other teams, but compared to other players they've, talked to. I heard a lot of hype about him, but we're going to move on. With the Bucks at 19, I think that there's plenty of options they could go with. They can go best player available for sure. Brian Branch is in play. Miles Murphy's in play. Tight end might be in play, but they have bigger needs. Actually, scratch that. I'm going safety. I'm going to go Brian Branch. I don't think that he's slipping all the way to 24 like a lot of people think. I think he's one of the better players in this draft and one of the more surefire picks. And the Bucks need that in their secondary. So they go Brian Branch. And the Seahawks are up at 20. We went with Jalen Carter at pick 5. And a lot on play for them too at 20. But what they really need is to help, Geno Smith. And to me, I think they could possibly go wide receiver here, especially with what's left. one of the second best wide receivers is on the board still. I'm going to go get that guy that's similar to Tyler Lockett, because Tyler Lockett might be gone soon. And that's going to be Zay Flowers. I like that fit a lot. And I like Zay Flowers as a player and a person, and I think he deserves to go in the first. Especially coming from a small school, I think, he is more to show. At 21, the Chargers are another team that, can go many different directions. But I might go with one of the more popular picks, and that's going to be Michael Mayer. I just think it makes sense, Jared Everett's not really what they wanted, and Michael Mayer's a different type of player for them anyway. If Kincaid falls here, I definitely could see them going that. They could go wide receiver second round. Ultimately, they need to fill some of their needs, so who knows if that makes sense, but I like the pick. Ravens at 22. I'm not a fan of the corners left, although I am a fan of Emmanuel Forbes, but I don't think it makes sense for their scheme. So I think I'm going to go wide receiver, and I think Quentin Johnston definitely deserves to be a first round pick, whether or not that's, later or earlier. I think 22 is a good spot for him. If they trade for DeAndre Hopkins, which is a very strong possibility from what I've been seeing, maybe that's not the pick there. Maybe they move back. Maybe they get Myles Murphy if he's here. Who knows? But at 23 with the Vikings, I don't like what fell to them, so I could definitely see a trade back happening if a team outside the second round wants to move up, or if someone like really anyone in the last picks in the first round want to move up. But they also need defensive interior. Kalijah Kancey fell here. We're gonna go Kalijah Kancey there. And at 24, so there was news that Cam Robinson is gonna get suspended. And I think, they lost Jawan Taylor, and I think it was already in play. I think it was a lock for a lot of people for them to just go, Brian Branch if he fell, or someone else. For me, I like the edges on the board, but I also think they need to protect Trevor Lawrence and keep that a priority. Darnell Wright's here. I think Darnell Wright could be a first-round pick. He might be worth it. So pick him, replace Jawan Taylor, and make sure you don't have a hole to start the season. And the Giants at 25. It's going to be a boring pick, Giants fans, but I'm going to go with John Michael Schmitz. It just makes sense. And with their offense and the potential they have, they can't be missing a piece like that. So just take it in the first round. He'll probably be, he's going to be a starter right away, and he could be a Pro Bowl player. So we'll see what happens there. But at 26 with the Cowboys, I've seen a lot of Cowboys fans say they want to go offense, so I could see Jahmyr Gibbs or wide receiver here, but with the wide receivers that are gone, I wouldn't go Jordan Addison. So I'm going to go Lucas Van Ness. I think that Lucas Van Ness would help the Cowboys a lot on that D-line. And then the Bills at 27. I honestly think that there's a chance they could go linebacker here. I'm not going to do it for this mock draft. That's going to be a surprise pick if it happens. I want to fit Brian Bresee in the first round, and I think it makes sense for the Bills. I think they'll go Brian Bresee there if he falls. And then with the Bengals, they need a running back if Joe Mixon's gone. And I gave it away, but we're going to Jahmyr Gibbs. There's been talk of that recently, and I could see it happening. The Eagles are mad. I could see them going Jahmyr Gibbs if he falls. But, Lions trade back. Probably get a second next year, or the Saints second this year, moving back 11 spots, at least a second probably. Myles Murphy's here. We're gonna go Myles Murphy. They just got Anthony Richardson and Myles Murphy and a few picks by trading back. That's couldn't be much better for them, and we're following the trend with that trade back with the Saints. Eagles at 30. I would go playmaker here for the Eagles, because I think because they addressed, the trenches at 10 with Tyree Wilson, which is an amazing pick for them, I think they could go playmaker, but I don't really like any of the playmakers sitting here right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go offense and get that replacement for Lane Johnson if he goes. And for me, I'm going to go DeJuan Jones, actually. I have DeJuan Jones a little bit higher than some of these tackles left. I would say DeJuan Jones' physical aspects give him a little bit more potential than Anton Harrison. And he has ridiculously long arms. And people say he moves slow, but that's because he's big. That's normal. Chiefs, last pick here in my predictive mock. I'm going to go edge for them, and I'm going to go Will McDonald. I think it replaces Frank Clark for them. I thought about maybe Mozzie Smith there, but I think they might need edge a little bit more. That's going to be my predictive mock for you guys. Can't wait for tonight, and, tune into the draft, and I'll see you guys in the next one.